Grand Rising, everybody. How you doing? This is your Coach Renz, and welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I am Coach Renz, and tonight we are going to have a conversation about the 12 tribes of Israel. And where the hell are they? Who are they? Hopefully, we'll have some interesting conversation. It would be great if we were able to get some Hebrew Israelites' attention tonight. You always want to have both sides of the story, but it'd be great to have theirs so that their perspective can be voiced and, of course, debunked. But we're going to wait. We got 5 minutes before we get started. So we're going to wait that 5 minutes before we actually get started. Give me a chance to get my cigar ready and some shameless plugs. Shameless plug number one. We are this Saturday having our deep dive into the Noah's flood story. We're going to talk about the science behind it that debunks it. We're also going to talk about the storytelling that debunks it, the history of that debunks it, and we're going to go deeper into it so that we are even more solidified in our deconstruction, as well as able to defend our position for those who like to get in discussion. What's up, Wrath, Jose, and Tim? How you guys doing? Early people on here right now. Also, I want to thank everybody who supports the channel by being a member on Facebook. You are a subscription holder on Facebook, a member on YouTube. And I also want to thank all the people who donate to the channel this way, and those who order cigars from my wife at masteringyou10@gmail.com. So thank you. Karif, welcome. Cafe, I think that's right. If I said your name incorrectly, let me know. But I want to thank everybody for being supporters of this channel. We do this in order to help those people who have made the decision to deconstruct continue on their journey of deconstruction. I'm not here to change anybody's mind or convert Christians out of their Christianity. That is all based on them, and they can keep it, which I always find strange why they come on here. Coach Ray is cigarholic. Exactly. Welcome, Donald. How you doing? Another member. I forgot to bring my water up here. See if I can ask my wife if she would bring me some water up here. So I want to thank everybody for being a part of the channel. We will have other seminars that will be happening on a continuous basis. So hopefully you guys will be able to join in those seminars as well, as we continue throughout the years. That's right, years. What's up, Sean? How you doing? John Morris, how you doing? That's nice. Nice. So before we get started, the door is always open. I was hoping that this one guy who was making arguments on the video that I posted earlier today would have been here already, but I don't see his name. Well, his name hasn't popped up in the comments, so oh well. But Saran, welcome. Of course, I post videos throughout the day, almost every day. So thank you guys for sharing those videos and watching those videos. That helps the channel dramatically. Greatly appreciate it. I think I posted 4 videos today. So please go out and enjoy those. And then on my relationship channel, which is Lorenzo Reed 369, I posted 2 videos today on the relationship channel as well. So I hope you guys like those as well. Did I see the question that you posted on one of the videos today? I cannot verifiably say that I did, because I don't know. I don't think I went and checked the comments on that video, because once I finished those things today, I went and spent some a couple of hours of quality time with the wife. Okay, welcome from Southeast Nigeria. I hope you. I'm curious. Ojeki or Jake. I don't know how to say your name, man. I don't mess it up. Ao. I'm gonna call you Ao if you don't mind. I hope you watched the video that I did on Burkina Faso. I think that's a very important thing that we should be paying attention to, because that situation could have greater ramification as life goes on. Okay, so Sean, you had asked a question. I guess this was on, what video is this? Oh, this is the one with Gino Jennings on it. And Sean had asked an outside question: the two preachers talking almost at the same time, is this kind of a distraction? Yes, it's a show technique. One, it creates this false idea of, oh, you posted it again here, but it creates this false idea of symbiosis between the two men, as if they are receiving from this God at the same time, which then looks to the people like God is working and involved with their thought process. That's one thing that it does. The other thing that it does is that because it's somewhat rehearsed, in the sense that the reader already knows where he's going to go. Most of the time, they already know the message. He's been given the preacher notes. So it allows for the dramatic reveal and for the preacher to really work the crowd, because when you're giving a speech, you want to take the people up. This is Gino preaching, and then the guy reads, takes him down. Take the people up, Gino preaching, brings the people down. And you do this in this little crescendo that goes up and down a little bit, up, down a little bit, up higher, and you bring them higher and higher and higher, and you get the people emotionally caught up into your speech, so that way, as you move the people through, your credibility seems stronger, and they're more willing to just accept what you're telling them because you've taken them through this process. You can do it where you use pregnant pauses to be able to explain something, to show, a deeper sympathy in it, a deeper level of contemplation. And then as you continue to rise and your wife brings you that bottle of water that you requested, it brings the people back up into the tension. And then we talk about how the water is the lifeblood of the earth, and without water, life wouldn't exist on the earth. And that life has been given to us by the Lord Jesus, because in the book he said this breath fluttered, the spirit fluttered above the waters. So it's speech techniques. That's all it is. It's just speech techniques. Right. So it's just like, if you ever go to Toastmasters, which is a great program, you learn that kind of thing when you're in Toastmasters. What's up, Coach? What do you believe in? Do you believe there is a God? There is not sufficient evidence for me to know that there is a God. I don't believe in anything. I have to have sufficient proof to even make a estimated guess about the existence of anything or anything, period. So there is not enough evidence that would demonstrate that a God exists. Is it possible? It's possible. The slightest of possibilities that there is a God that exists. What we know for a fact, what I am factually, I will state factually rather, is that none of the gods of the religions that we have known of, none of them are true. Not a one. It doesn't matter what religion is brought to bear. None of those religions are the ideal or the personification of a God. The closest things that get to explaining if a God actually exists would be the Tao Te Ching, certain thoughts in Buddhism, and Hermeticism. That's it. Nothing else really No other religion brings about a God. Would be the idea of God, or even follows in a pathway where that God would be something that is true. So, ooh, that's some good coffee. So we have to we want to think about it in terms like, so that's what I think in terms of a God existing, and a simple thought process, right? If a God existed, why would there be a requirement to worship that God? If the God had a requirement for worship, then that God will be lacking in. If a God lacks anything, it cannot then there be God. If a God has issues of jealousy and anger, it cannot be God. So, so we're about to get started in the show. I see that we have Mr. Casey here, or Miss Casey. I don't know. I don't know if Casey, that name can go either way. The white supremacists that claim Anglo-Saxons are the descendants of the lost tribes fail to realize if such is true, because in the Caribbean and in America, blacks in the Caribbean and in America are the Israelites. Didn't the slave master rape your women? Okay. So Casey, your man. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know. That way I can address you properly. There's an interesting thing when it comes to this Israelite identity. And this is where I want to start. Where I want to start with this thought process is that every person who has been surrounded by Christianity or Judaism, every person who used to believe in it or believes in it today, they grew up in a society where this idea of these 12 tribes of Israel are factual, and even more factual and more important to it is the fact that they believe that this God of Israel is the God, and they want to be the children of the God. There's a specialness that goes with this God, is that you get to declare yourself the chosen people. If there is one thing throughout history that has been true, is that every society, especially any society that achieves a level of greatness, have always wanted to attach their greatness to a God. Whether it was the Roman Empire and Romulus attaching themselves to Jupiter, whether it is the Greeks and the Greeks attaching themselves to Zeus, every society has deemed themselves worthy based on some God, based on the God of their belief. So in our modern times, we've had the last 1700 years where the God of Israel has been the primary God that formed Western civilization. And in every sense of it, man has wanted to attach himself in some form or fashion to this God. This is why you have things written in the Bible that says that for whatever government or kingship you are born under, then respect it, obey it, because God put that king in place. When you look at or listen to or read any of the creeds that any king takes, it is always as if it was blessed by this God. They believe that they were a direct speaking point and representation of this God, i.e., the office of the Pope. The kings of all the countries in Europe. And so this Western mentality has made people want to be part of this religion and make themselves special. Because let's face it, everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to be looked upon as their life has greater meaning than the struggles, than the survival that they're going through. So if I can attach it to the God that everybody worships, everybody supports, then I'm special. I'm special. Somebody mentioned Longshanks. John mentioned Longshanks. Anytime any royalty of family has taken over, it has always been deemed by God. Whether it's the Tudors or the Stuarts or whoever, they deemed it by God. Charles I of Spain, is Charles the First or the second, I think it might be the second, of Spain, his father was also his grandfather. He wanted to be in the bloodline because that's how they kept kingship, made it special. So what we have then becomes, for the average person, the only specialness you can have is to be a part of the tribes of Israel. So, when you live in a society that's been beaten down, a society that went through 400 years of slavery, and for most of the history in America of Black people seems to begin in slavery. That's when history for Black people in America began, slavery. They weren't teaching about the kingdoms of Africa. They weren't teaching about those West African kingdoms that thrived and that were developing and growing and becoming great. We didn't teach about those. Our history in America as Black people started in slavery. So when you progress into the mid to late 1900s, well, Black people need something to make them special. Whether it was the Nation of Islam, speaking of how we were, Islam is the true religion of the Black man, and that we were supposed to follow Farad, and then there's Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, and that made them special. Their movement grew because they felt special. It made them feel better. It made them think that they had something that was missing. And from that same mindset, you got your Nuwampians. You know, you guys remember them, the Nuwampian movement. Unfortunately, down there in Georgia with Malachi York. When I went to visit his compound, what I saw was something to make Black people feel special. It gave out little booklets. It told the story of Noah, the story of Moses and Abraham and Adam and Eve, and they were all Black. And there was a different slight variations, and it made you feel special. And this is why so many Black people attach themselves to Egypt's history. Because we know the Cushite people, Ethiopians, Black. So everybody, when they talk about, in my former life, I was an Egyptian princess. I was an Egyptian king. I was somebody important in Egypt. Nobody's ever just a little bread maker in Egypt. Nobody's ever just a little cattle herder in Ghana or the Gambia. No. There's always something big. Always got to be somebody great. So when you have a bunch of disenfranchised Black men, a bunch of Black men who's been Christianized and they follow Christianity, and a bunch of Black men who feel disenfranchised from Christianity, and they most of them have suffered in poverty, and most of them have went to jail and prison because Jail and prison is a great breeding ground for getting people to change their belief system. So when you have these black men who come out and they don't see a way of making their lives that much better than it was before they went in. Matter of fact, most of the time it's worse when they get out. Well, the Hebrew Israelites presented a great message to them. It presented them a message that they was familiar with, a message that said that God is the God of the Hebrew Bible. And the reason why they are suffering is because as their ancestral Hebrews kept going in and out of bondage, in and out of captivity, that a final straw was broken. And then they were sent to the Americas on ships, enslaved for 400 years. And they take tidbits of information, very slight tidbits of information, and make them bigger. You know, little things. The name Mizraim for Egypt means bondage. So when they were sent to Egypt, it means that they were sent into bondage. And since we have 267 years of, or 263 years of slavery in America, and we was brought across on boats, it's bondage. That's the bondage. That's Egypt is America. All of a sudden, even though the definite article is present, where this God says that he's going to send them to Egypt, the definite article is there when it talks about Mizraim as Egypt, which indicates that it's talking about the place and not the idea of bondage. They easily ignore that. They easily walk away from that idea. They easily can say that, no, that's not what it means. And let's face it, most of the people that they're talking to, these people don't know how to do research. These people have never done research. These people have never stretched their brains into the more difficult things of study. So they're easily duped. And it makes them feel good. It gives them a justification for joining the Hebrew Israelites, for following this belief. And we see this all the time. I see it all the time. All the time. In different comments. Comments like this one. The Bible is allegory of African spirituality, especially Ethiopian and Egyptian. No, it's not. It is not. The overwhelming majority of the Old Testament is written based on the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Canaanite religion. There is very little that deals with the religion of the Kemetic people. And there is almost nothing in it that deals with the Ethiopian religion. Nothing. That deals with the Ethiopian religion. But if you want to keep this religion, then we can say it's allegory. We can say it's all astrotheology. We can cast it to the winds to make it whatever we want to make it so that it feels comforting for us to stay with this information. It doesn't allow us, let me rephrase, it doesn't force us to stretch ourselves beyond what we've identified as our beliefs that make us who we are. And let's face it, the Hebrew Israelite religion, it gives you a level, it gives disenfranchised black men a means to be able to make statements of grandeur and power towards white people. It allows them to become racist religiously, as if it's a good thing. It does so easily. I do not, you have to be more expressive in that thought process, Mike. How the 500 year, how the 500-year-older Ethiopian book fits in. The Ethiopian Bible is not 500 years older than Christianity. Christianity didn't come to Ethiopia until 330, well, 300, yeah, around 300 to 330 BC, CE. And the book that you're talking about is a 15th century book. So you see how I can hold on to this Bible if I can make it black. If I say that the Ethiopians had Christianity before the Europeans, then I can say that they've twisted it. But whether they had it or not, even though they did not have it at all, prior to it, from the first century all the way up through till 300 CE, the Axiom Empire was a polytheistic religion. They had a polytheistic religion. So how could the Ethiopians predate Christianity when Christianity was not in Ethiopia until 300 years after the religion supposedly started? That you already had it in Egypt, you already had it in Turkey, you already had it in Rome, you already had it in those places. Okay, so Mike's agreeing with me, so that's why I said I didn't understand what you meant by that. They already had it. So, but it allows for Christians today, black Christians, to say, yes, they took it and they stole it from Africa and they mistranslated and misused it and they did say A, B, and C. And the Hebrew Israelites follow the same thing. They follow the same thing. And it allows black people to say this. Back then, I had a relative who was like, white people are the devil, they evil, they cruel. And based on societal norms, there are a lot of black people who have this mentality. I have an aunt. She grew up in Jim Crow, saw the transition, but to this day, she will not allow herself to have any white friends. She does not trust any white person. And when I finally made her realize that she was racist, she said, well, I'm just going to be racist. So what the Hebrew Israelites have done is that they have taken the smallest bits of information that suits their narrative, and then they run off and say, this proves that the black people in America and throughout the Americas are Hebrew Israelites. And so they create these groups who are also disenfranchised groups in the Americas. They created an idea that these people are the Israelites. Now, let me be clear, not every Hebrew Israelites agree that each one of these tribes are the Hebrew Israelites. Not all of them, they all don't agree with this. But for the most part, this is what they do, and especially being here in San Antonio. Like, you'll see a lot of them walking around the streets and they'll try to convince the 63% population of Mexicans here that they are from the house of the tribe of Issachar. And they try. They tell them that all the time. The last time we saw them downtown, I walked past them while they was trying to convince this group of Mexican men that they were from the tribe of Issachar. And I'm looking at these Mexican men and I'm like, you've already had your history taken away from you by the Spanish. And even though you can identify some of your history now in dealing with with knowing that you're either Aztecs or Mayans or from Yucatan or whatever, now these black men want to take your history again. And this is what they try to promote. But it's a failure. Hold on. And I'm gonna try to answer the questions of things that are in topic, on topic, and close enough to topic in the first hour. Wasn't Queen Candace of Ethiopia supposedly became friends and even possibly sexual or romantic relationship with King Solomon, and that there was a Jewish religious group in Ethiopia from Candace? Only if you believe the Bible. There is zero historicity that supports that Matika, Queen Candace. Candace is a title. Her name was like Madika. There's zero proof that Madika actually existed. Zero proof that she went up into the Levant and met Solomon. Zero proof that they had a son. So once Christianity hit Ethiopia in the 300s, other groups decided that they were going to be Israelites. And then those groups claimed this story of Candace. And it had some levels of followership in the 5th century, 6th century, moving forward, just a little bit here and there. But it wasn't until Haile Selassie made his claim that it became relevant. But there's no proof. And if anything, if the queen had come and became an Israelite, then would not in the 900 BCE time frame, the Axiom Empire, the DMT Empire, the Sabians Empire would have been whichever empire that you denote, whether it's from Yemen or from Ethiopia, they would have become Israelites then. They would have had a history of kings and queens being Israelites then. The same with the story of the Ethiopian eunuch, supposedly a member of the royal court in the 1st century. Yet, if this Ethiopian eunuch took the Isaiah scrolls and was taught about Jesus and came down to the Axiom Empire at that time frame, there's zero evidence of any of the kingship converting to Christianity during that time frame. So these are just Bible stories. The only evidence of these things happening is in the Bible. Nowhere else does it happen. So what I want to do right now is break down where Israelites came from and what happened to Israelites. And it's quite simple. It is quite simple. It is not a long process here of what happened to the Israelites. Now understand, there is a difference between Jews and Israelites. Jews are people who adopted the religion. So you can be of any group and you adopted the religion. But Israelites, the bloodline, is what we're focusing on. What happened to those people based on history and archaeology that we can validate to a certain degree. All right. So in and around about 6,000 BCE, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 BCE, you had a group of people who came up out of what is now the Persian Gulf, when it was dry, when it was forest. And those people moved up into Mesopotamia. These Sumerians started building their townships. As they built, they encountered another people called the Akkadians. And they warred against each other until finally they became unified. Sometimes having Sumerian kings, sometimes having Akkadian kings. And then finally one Akkadian takes hold, becomes great, establishes the Akkadian Empire. He established this Akkadian Empire, which stretches all the way across up into the Levant, Anatolia, down through what is modern day Israel, all the way to the Persian Gulf. He made a point to talk about how he went from one sea to the other sea, from the South Sea to the North Sea, and conquered all of that land. And all the people were Akkadians and Sumerians. And then finally, under Sumerian king leadership, about 200, 300 years after Sargon died, the empire started struggling. And in that struggle, some of the people that they had conquered start separating from themselves, separating from them. And you had this one group of people who separated from them. Excuse me. And this group of people who were living in the Levantian area that we now know as Israel, they were called Canaanites. And the Canaanite people also had further separations within themselves. They became the Pebusites and the Jebusites, the Amorites and the Ammonites. And they all had their small city-state townships. But then those people were conquered by another power. And that power was Egypt. And Egypt conquered that power. And for about 3,000 years, Egypt was in control and treated the people like trash. And so, after some time, another group of Canaanites separated from the main Canaanite group in and around 15 to 1300 BCE. And that group called themselves Israelites. Now, although these Israelites were still living under Egyptian rule, they moved out into the mountainside, out into the mountains, out into the hillside, and they were just a nomadic, wandering people. And then they were finally conquered. They were beaten down. Let me not say conquered. Because they were not adhering to Egypt's rule, they then were beat down by Pharaoh Meneptah in 1204. And this is the first time we have the mentioning of an Israelite in history, is when Meneptah in 1204 BCE whooped their ass. So these people who had thought they had separated from Egypt had come often under the Egyptian rule, were then defeated by Egypt. So we see where their stories begin to develop. But then, about 100 years later, a massive drought ensues the land of the Levant and in Egypt. This wasn't the first time that they dealt with a drought, but this drought was different. Because during this drought, you had some sea people that we call the sea people, which was a mixture of different people, whether it was Phoenicians or people from Anatolia, people from the Black Sea area. You had different people. There were some Hittites that were involved. They came, and at this weakened point of civilization, a Great Depression that was going on, these sea people defeated the Egyptians and finally drove them back past the Sinai Peninsula. So in and around about 1100 BCE, Egypt doesn't rule the Levant, but neither do the Hittites, and neither do the Phoenicians or anybody else. So it's manifest destiny time. It's land grab time. So different smaller kingdoms starts developing that are of these different Canaanite people. So in effect, you can say that for the next 100 to 200 years, we have a Canaanite land grab civil wars that are going on between people who came from the same stock. So they all start fighting. But eventually, the Israelites develop their own land. They develop their own city-states, their own kingdom. They win to a certain level. And so in around 800 BCE to 700 BCE, the establishment of the Israelite, northern Israel and southern Judah is established. If they were one nation at one point, that is yet to be discovered. The Bible is the only source that says that they were one nation. But as far as what history tells us, what archaeology tells us, the Israelites were separated by the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Israel. The southern kingdom of Israel was the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. The other 10 kingdoms were in the northern kingdom. The other 10 tribes were in the northern kingdom of Israel. Problem, though, is that after a little bit of time, if they were established in the 800s BCE or 900 BCE, by the time we get into the 700 BCE, I thought the Canaanites were kind of tribe that those who were loyal. No, they split all around, like a whole bunch of, like a plate of spaghetti. They were all different kinds of people, but have a similar base. But the Israelites originally came out of the Canaanite society. This is why they share the same God in Yahweh, and later on El. This is why they have those similarities in their pantheons and in their rules and their laws. This is also why they have similar stories to the Akkadians and Sumerians, because the Canaanites ultimately came out of the Sumerians and Akkadians. So in around 700, in the 700s BCE, this is when the Assyrians conquer northern Israel, southern kingdom of Judah, as well as the northern part, the Sinai Peninsula and northern Egypt. So we have the Assyrian Empire. They've conquered. They're ruling. Sennacherib, the one that is mentioned the most, Sennacherib, after he conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, he did what would become a repetitive thing. He left Jerusalem and let that city-state still remain. Allow for them to still have their worship. Allow for them to still run their government, but under Sennacherib, under the Assyrians, as a vassal empire. Now, being a vassal empire was something that was already common, so that part wasn't something that was common, but he let them be vassals. They were already vassals. They were previous, just as other kingdoms were vassals under Egypt. So Sennacherib leaves Jerusalem alone, but conquers most of the other cities, if not all the other cities, and destroys those cities. Hezekiah changes the worship to say that all sacrifice worship money comes to Jerusalem now. That's why everything is centered around Jerusalem. Sargon was an Akkadian. He was related to Adamu? No, not that I know of, but he definitely was Akkadian. So what Sennacherib does is he takes the best, the brightest. He also takes many of just the people in general, the ones who could fight, the ones who could run supply lines and bolster their community. He brings them out of these 10 tribes in northern Israel and brings them inside the Assyrian Empire. He goes as far as setting up a brigade down in Elephantine, Egypt. And while they were set up, is that during his time frame? Yeah, it was during the Assyrian time frame. But he set them up down there in Elephantine, which is an island in the middle, in the lower middle of the Nile River. And they set up a fortress on what was at one point the temple of Khnum. Now, this is, you may have heard of the Elephantine letters, or the Elephantine stele. This is what that stele is talking about. It's talking about how these, under the Assyrians, these Israelites were set up to help fight and maintain order with Egypt, as the Assyrians had conquered Egypt at this time frame. And they were asking Jerusalem about how they should conduct their worship. And so the Assyrians simply absorbed most of the 10 tribes of the north. The tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin were relatively left alone. Excuse me. And then the Assyrians, they ruled. They ruled for a long time, for a few hundred years. And then the Assyrians were finally defeated by the Babylonians. And when the Babylonians came in and they conquered the Assyrians and they took northern Israel and Judah and northern Egypt, they took this and did the same thing. They pulled even more people from those tribes of Israelites into the Babylonian Empire. And they became Babylonians. They were there for 70 years, became part of their empire, part of their people. This is why you have so many Babylonian stories that are in the Old Testament. The Tower of Babel being one of those stories. So they were pulled into the Babylonian Empire. So now we got a mixture into the Assyrians. Well, first we're coming out of being Canaanites. So we were originally part of the Canaanite Akkadian, with the Akkadians and Sumerians. And then we start identifying ourselves as Canaanites. And now we're going to separate from the Canaanites and identify ourselves as Israelites. And after identifying ourselves as Israelites, we're then setting up our 12 tribes. But then 12 of our tribes initially, 10 of our tribes initially get sucked up into the Assyrians. And then when the Babylonians conquered, some of those 10 are sucked up into the Assyrians as well. And some of the other 2 tribes are sucked up into the Babylonians. And so they're conquered by those people. And they remain conquered for a few hundred years until the Persians came. And then they were conquered by the Persians. And as they were conquered by the Persians, they did the same thing. Although they released many of them to go and reestablish Jerusalem and make it more of a city of value, make the land more useful for the Persians, they still were under the Persian Empire and were sucked up into being Persians. And then after a few hundred years, here comes the Greeks. And the Greeks conquered. They conquered the Levant. And what do Greeks do? What is Hellenization? Hellenization is the taking the Greek religion and the Greek lifestyle and converting and mirroring, finding mirrors to fit and make it seem like y'all are believing the same thing. Oh, you got Yahweh, you got El, we got Zeus. They pretty much did the same thing, pretty much the same thing. Yeah, your El is just like Zeus. Your Asherah is just like Hera. So again, it's the words of the victors and the ones that tell them, pick and choose the words of the rulers. To a certain extent, but this is also just what happened in history. Not just about the rulers, but just what happened in history. We know that the Greeks forced marriage between Greek soldiers and the local people. They did this in India. They did it in modern day, what we call Pakistan today. They did it in every region that they went into. They did it in Egypt. So even though Greeks were not Viking white, more of a brown, like olive brownish white, it lightened up the people. Now, mind you, there was always trade and shit going on through this whole region for millennials. So these people are already intermixing to a certain degree, but these were the major mixing. So when we see, I'm sorry, Deuteronomy is talking about God showed, let me put it up here, that God showed his power throughout these events. No, your God didn't show his power through these events. The writings were edited to fit the events. The linguistic formation of the Deutero Isaiah, which is this aspect of Isaiah that you're talking about, were fitted into it was rewritten and edited to fit into the actual history. But anyway, so the Greeks, they forced the marriage. They forced people to, shakalaka boom boom and have babies. Because think about it, it's not a bad thing if you're thinking about it from the conquering state. If I have sex with, let's say America conquers China. Well, if all the American soldiers have sex with the Chinese women, and now we have these babies, and we're living like somewhat like a family, it's unlikely our sons are going to war against us and go against us, especially if I'm making sure that the mother is not teaching the sons some bullshit and the kids are going to the schools that we said that they can go to. And then when my son gets with Sean and his Chinese wife's daughter, then we have them get together. Our grandkids aren't going to go against their grandparents. And we're going to teach them that their lives are better. This was the process of Hellenization. This was Alexander's way of securing his empires. And this is one of the reasons why he was able to maintain, the Greeks were able to maintain these empires for a couple of hundred years. So it's a way of doing things. It was a common practice for the Greeks, and this is what they did, even when they came to. So when they came to the Levant, it's not like they didn't do anything different. So even more of the bloodlines of the tribes begin to get lost, and this is why they start talking about the lost 10 tribes, because only the tribe of Judah and Benjamin was still recognizable to a certain degree, and that's just not based on blood. That was merely based on religion. So this was a common thought, a common idea. And then after the Greeks, we had the Hasmonean dynasty, which didn't happen after the Greeks, happened within the Greeks, where they set up a kingdom that sort of lasted a little bit of time, about 100 so years during the ruling of the Greeks. And then here comes the Romans. And the Romans were notorious for conquering a people and shipping those people who just lost the battle as slaves throughout the Roman Empire. For instance, in second century BCE, when Rome conquered the Isles of Britain, they said that the British people were only good for being eaten by the lions and slavery. And so a large number of the people conquered in the British Isles were sent into slavery all throughout the Roman Empire. When they conquered through North Africa, they sent large numbers of people as slaves throughout the Roman Empire. So when they conquered Egypt and the Levant, they sent them as slaves throughout large portions of the empire. So like, and this help you out, Rashid, because I haven't read a book in 20 years, at least. You can read the Josephus's War of the Jews and the Annals of Titus, which he was the scribe for Titus. And Josephus talks about how in 70 AD, after the siege of Jerusalem and the Judea fell, he then shipped off by boat and by land a large portion of the Jewish population, the Israelite population, I should say, to Egypt, to Rome, to Tunisia, all around the Roman Empire. That a large number of the Hebrew people, Israelite people, were shipped all around the Roman Empire. And like I said, this is what you'll find when you read the Annals of Titus and the War of the Jews. The War of the Jews actually focused more on the Maccabees, but so the Annals of Titus. I read PhD papers and things like that, for the last 20 years. I don't read books anymore. So can't suggest a book. So this area is conquered by the Romans. And then it is maintained by the Romans And as the centuries go by, the people are allowed to, and they move all around the Roman Empire. They move into Egypt. They move into North Africa. They move into Spain and all over the Roman Empire. These people move. There are groups of Christians and groups of Jews all over the Roman Empire, and they're causing problems. And so that's why in 325, Constantine is like, we got to get this thing in order. And so he established the orthodoxy of Christianity. But Christianity continues to reign in all this area, and Rome still rules it until they are defeated by the Ottomans. And once they are defeated by the Ottomans in around the 600s CE, now this area is being ruled by Muslims, Arabs. And as they're ruled by Arabs, yes, some of them run into Ethiopia, some of them run to Egypt, but there's zero evidence of any of them going into South Africa, south of East Africa. There's no records of any of them going into West Africa. And when we jump all the way forward until we get to around the late 1400s, early 1500s, and 1600s, we see that the Portuguese and the Dutch are doing business with the Dahomey tribe. And the main people that the Dahomey tribe, and let me add like a pastor. Watch this now, watch this now, watch this now. Watch this. As the Portuguese are purchasing slaves from the Dahomeys and to get guns and to give them so that the Dahomey tribe can get guns from them, the Dahomey are wanting these guns because they're fighting a people north of them called the Wayuda tribe. The Wayuda tribe. Now, since the Dutch and the Portuguese have a problem pronouncing Wayuda, they call them the land of Judah. So the Dahomey are selling Wayuda people to the Dutch, to the Portuguese, and they're calling them Judah. So the Hebrew Israelite then says, based on a map made by a white man that they say is all evil, that was the land of Judah. And that's why these West Africans, these people who are in the Americas, these Black Americans, African Americans, whatever you want to call us, are the tribe of Israel. They accept the information from whom they call the enemy and evil because of a map, because some Portuguese and Dutch people couldn't pronounce Wayuda. When they would hear the Dahomey say Wayuda, they heard Judah. Now, mind you, at that time frame, European Christendom hated Jews. So they didn't mind. To them, they could care less. So what happened to the, first of all, there is no such thing as the 12 tribes of Israel until around the 1300s at the earliest. At the earliest. And they weren't really the 12 tribes at that time frame. At that time frame, they were simply Israelites. It is not until somewhere within the Bronze Age collapse that they established their 12 tribes. So there was nothing about 12 tribes prior to that. So based on what we've just went over, the 12 tribes of Israelites were absorbed into the Assyrians, absorbed into the Babylonians, then absorbed into some Persians, and then absorbed into some Greeks and absorbed into some Romans. sent all around the Roman Empire. And so they all were scattered, blood mixing through all those people. And the last known group that really was part of them were the Arabs. So none of those people, based on history, no one is an Israelite. The closest people who would be an Israelite would be the Palestinians of today. It will be the Palestinians of today. It will be the people who have been in Israel and maybe didn't convert over to Islam, but have remained in Israel. Other than that, nobody else is an Israelite. That blood is so damn thin to anybody outside of that. What proof that you have that a tribe of Judah ever went to Ethiopia? There have been no Ethiopians, no Jews in Ethiopia until after Ethiopia converted to Christianity. And as far as the Bible that you're talking about, it's not the oldest original Bible. That is one of the most misinformed things that I hear about Ethiopia. You're talking about a Bible that is a 15th century Bible. Now they converted to Christianity in 300 CE, 330 actually, CCE. Could the Bible that they have today be exactly what it was in 330? It's possible, but we have no proof of that. And it's not the oldest. The Septuagint is older. The oldest Torah. The Valentunis, older. And then here's the thing about it. If it's a 15th century book, so what? That speaks nothing to Judah. Don't be talking about you misspoke after I get on the roll. I was on the roll. Okay. Louis said they misspoke. So again, none of the 12 tribes are directly left bred out. Combination of two. Some were so what I'm saying is that you will find bloodlines that may be in Egypt and North Africa and in Europe because they were sent all over the Roman Empire. You understand? They were sent all over the Roman Empire. Some as slaves, some just moved. But because, yeah, there were Jews in the 1st century and 2nd century that had revolts against the Roman Empire in Alexandria, Egypt. I think it's called the Kefar revolt that happened in Alexandria, Egypt. So there were Jews that was in the Roman Empire. Philo of Alexandria in the 1st century, I mean, well, 1st and 2nd century, was one of the top dudes in Alexandria, Egypt. He was a Hellenistic Jew. So yes, for the most part, bred out and then sent all over the Roman Empire. Prove it. The Yemenites are the true Israelites. So in my earlier statements, because of the popularity of the Bible, people want to claim that they are part of these tribes. There is no history that demonstrates the people of Yemen becoming Israelites. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Can you give the names of the Israelites from their beginning? Canaanites and another name that begins with a L. The Israelites directly came out of the Canaanites. Now, there were a whole bunch of other ites that separated from the primary Canaanite groups as well. But the Israelites themselves, like the Ammonites and the Amorites, separated from the Canaanites. So if those Ethiopians are not real Jews, why would Israel allow them into Israel, even though they treat them as second-class citizens? But that's a topic for another story. I want you to think about this for a second. Look at the timing of when they allowed them to come in. The timing that they allowed them to come in is relatively the same time frame that those 6 or 7, and I think is now up to 8, East African nations started talking about becoming one nation. Right when the East African Federation started to become more of a real possibility, all of a sudden Israel want to say that, yeah, y'all the beta Israelites or beta whatever y'all want to call them. Yeah, come on in. They have been fighting those people ever since Israel was first established. You had Ethiopians trying to claim Israelite and want to be a part of Israel and be in there. And they were like, hell no, hell no. Even when Haile Selassie was like, come on, y'all, we Israelites. They were like, hell no. But as soon as they start talking about the East African Federation, so it's all political. It ain't got nothing to do with reality. It's a political move. That's all. So no, they really don't accept them. It's just a political move. Just like, have you noticed how Israel is trying to be on all these little African countries' side right now? They know where the next powerhouses are coming from as these countries begin to gain control of their resources. Everybody want to buddy up with Africa now. No, it's an impossibility for any of the, let me rephrase that. I'm not saying it that way. Like I said earlier, the Axiom Empire, the Ethiopian Axiom Empire, were polytheistic from the beginning of the history that we know of them, which stretches beyond the history of the Israelites. They were polytheistic, never an inkling of Judaism. The earliest time that you may have had some Israelites coming into Ethiopia would have been under the Roman Empire, which some may have tried to escape the Roman Empire into Ethiopia, but Ethiopia wasn't that kind of country. They didn't let people just roll up in there. They maintained their borders pretty well. I mean, we see even up until when Frumentius crashed, his boat crashed on their soil, the first thing they did was make him a slave first. They didn't really play that, oh, come on in, give me, you're hungry, you're tired, you're weak. They didn't do that nonsense for the overwhelming majority of their history. It's not until 300s, the early 300s that you get you get Christianity in there. So you don't get Judaism in there until after Christianity. So, and because it was declared a Christian country, you literally got hundreds and hundreds of years before Jews were allowed into Ethiopia. And most of that would have been because of people converting, not people who are of any of these tribes. So there is no you really it's really much later that you get this big push of them in there. Their archaeology doesn't show Israelites in Ethiopia until much later in history, after Christianity was well in place. They've never had an Israelite king or queen until you get to Haile Selassie. And then people took what he did and started becoming Rastafarians. And Haile Selassie was in the 70s, right? If I'm correct, he's in the 70s. Now, so how in the hell can anybody in the Americas be Israelites? Now I got one more thing about it. One more thing about it. The time frame of the 12 tribes of Israel doesn't kick off until around 1100, 1000 BCE. There were already people in Africa, already people in Europe, already people in the Americas, well before all that time frame ever happened. So how in the hell are any of those people Israelites? How are any of them Israelites? Certainly not the children of Noah's kids. There were people in those countries before and after Noah's kids. Same bloodlines of people. Now, that is why early on I said there's a difference between people who adopt the religion, but the Hebrew Israelites are claiming bloodline, that they are from the bloodlines of the 12 tribes. Yes, and I remember reading about this rabbi who was saying that, but it wasn't accepted by the government until more recent times. It's not natural. Jews are considered a race, even though it is not based on natural characteristics, but a collective social cultural identity. Yes. And it's funny to me because when people talk about and say Jews, they don't talk about nothing but white people. It's white Jews. Them the only Jews they talk about. If you went to anybody in most of the world, not just America, most of the world, and said that, well, a Jewish man is going to be coming to dinner tonight. If a black man or an Asian man walk through that door, they're going to be looking like, okay, when the Jewish man coming? When is the Jewish man coming? But that's what they're going to be looking for. I dropped the link because I knew that Trifold gonna have something to say because I said somebody's Haile Selassie. So there are no the tribes of Israel is a lost bloodline, is a lost tribe. You have some levels of establishment between maybe a few lines of people who would end up being Muslim Palestinians if they truly went through their history. What up, man? Oh shit! Wait a minute. Look at Trifold. I had a whole thing up there. You there?
What up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Mic check. I'm not using my fancy headphones. Like,
All
can you
right.
hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear.
Let me clear.
Can you hear me?
All right. Okay. First off, let me say, yeah. Oh, hang on. Let me mute the YouTube stream. That should be better right now because it was getting feedback from the YouTube stream.
Okay.
We clear now?
Yeah.
Are we clear now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first off, let me say thanks for having me. I know it's not often that you drop the link for somebody to come and challenge you. I know that. But I am worthy to challenge you. And I will give you some smoke tonight, coach.
All right.
So thanks a lot for having me. And all the little people who made this possible. You know, the whole spiel. Anyways, I'm not gonna come up tonight because I'm not decent. You understand?
It's fine. Get on with it, man. What you got to say?
We can have a spiel without me like.
If you don't get to the subject.
All right, okay. Oh man. I was just trying to break the ice on her.
The ice has been broken.
Let me see what's going on here. What did they tell you? Okay. Right. No, you know that I am a stickler for chronology. Almost all my research is based in chronology. Chronology meaning timekeeping. With timekeeping, we have to employ all the calendars that we know.
That's
from
generally
archaic
what
times through antiquity up to now to maintain a correct timeline. Can I get it? Yeah, man. So what I'm saying is this. The question that I posed in the chat was fairly straightforward. You do know that the Jews, algorithm. I meant Jews. When I say Jews, I mean, you know, like Jew farming on plants or the grass or so on. And it's
man, just say what you say. I don't give a damn about the algorithm. I don't care about the algorithm. Just say what you're going to say.
It's been quite a while now since I've actually seen Jew on the grass early morning time. When was the last time you saw Jew on the grass?
Bruh.
And I know you old enough to know what Jew is. The youngsters may not know, but I know
say
you do.
Jew all the time.
When was the last time you saw Jew on the grass?
Man, too. Get to the point.
Okay, my point is this. All of the history that we know, that we can calculate, quantify, and so on, was actually written by the Jewish academia. Which means, first point, which means that it's got a skew on it in the very first beginning. All of the English translations we've got from Latin to Greek, they've all been done by Jews.
No, it has not.
No. Okay, well, you can dismantle that as you like, but I've posited my point. Dismantle it, please, because I would like to know that this is not true. If it is true,
the Egyptians created their own calendars and their own timeline. When Julius Caesar made his Julian calendar, there were no Jews involved. When the Arabs, through alchemy, created their calendar, there was no Jews involved. The Greeks made their calendar without any Jews. The Aztecs and the Mayans made their calendars without any Jews.
I beg to differ, coach. I beg to differ. My research has shown me that throughout all of these cultures and so on that have been the Jews were extremely prevalent in causing not only the demise of the society, but a move
How does a Jew
away
have
from.
how does a Jew have anything to do with Egypt creating their calendar with Imhotep in 2600 BCE, and there was no such thing as a Jew back then?
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. That's a great segue. That's a great segue. In that the Egyptian society was not created out of nothing. It was not a miraculous event that just happened to manifest at, one time. It was
Okay.
derived. It was derived from somewhere. All the philosophies of Egypt were derived from somewhere. Egypt was not the very
Okay.
first civilization.
No,
Can we
but they're
agree on
before the
that?
Jews, way
Okay.
before the
Which
Hebrew
means,
Israelite.
furthermore, in many contemporary, um, should I say encapsulations, or should I say summarizations of Egypt suggests that Egypt was formed at a very high level of society, and it did not begin or evolve from basic man or from primitive man. All indications suggest that Egypt was a society one day, and it had high civilization from the very beginning. How is that possible?
That is something that's still been
Because the records
so
that we have are only promulgated down through the line of the Jews. They are the authors of our history, coach.
wait a minute. No. The Jewish people, okay, so when you talk about the people of Egypt, and what you're talking about is their step evolution, is what it's called. And it is just the fact that they came on the scene, popped out of nowhere, and they already knew so many things that the average other society did not know about. Now, they weren't the first ones. The Sumerians and the Akkadians
Exactly.
super precedes them. Now, they already knew a bunch of things and had a society, but their writings were written in hieroglyphics. Their writings were written by their own hand and not by Hebrew people, because no Hebrew existed during that time frame that these writings were made. Now, it is known that
Agreed. Coach, come
the
on. You're
Egyptians that
speaking
we
to
call
you're
Egyptians
speaking
today.
to an advanced you're speaking to an advanced student. Okay? I know that
No,
Hebrew and everything Hebrew is all
I,
derived
I,
from
I am not
Aramaic.
speaking to an advanced
Hebrew and
student.
Hebrew is not
What I'm speaking to is somebody who already has a
Hebrew
narrative and they
and
want to make it
is a
fit.
flavor.
Your audio is horrible, just to let you know. I don't know if you can change it,
I know, I'm sorry about that.
but you are speaking from a mindset that puts the Bible ahead of actual research, because there was no such thing as a Hebrew when the Egyptian society hit the map in the way that we look at their time frame. So in around 6,000, 7,000 BCE, when their society hit the map, we don't, and what we don't see with them is a growth into their level of society that was going on at around the 6,000 BCE time frame. So this, and then they made these great leaps, and we don't know why or how they were able to make them. But what we do know is that they originally came from modern day southern Sudan, and that they migrated into this area. So they did not have
Oh,
anything
please don't tell me about
Hebraic
this journey.
about them. There was no such, and that's the you know what, I'm gonna end it right there. How can they have anything Hebraic about them if there was no such thing as a Hebrew when their society developed for thousands of years? Thousands of years. No such thing as a Hebrew. But yet these people had a magnificent society.
You are completely correct. You know, the same questions you asking me are the questions that I'm asking you. I'm looking for answers, Coach.
Well, that's what I'm telling you is that, well, I'm answering your statement of that. Now,
Make it make sense to me.
as far
Correlate
as
these events.
there is one event that changed the globe, and which happened about 9,000 to 12,000 BCE, where we had the Younger Dryas flood. The Younger Dryas flood created the Persian Gulf. It flooded any coastal lands up to 400 feet. There were societies that were lost because of the Younger Dryas flood. The Egyptians and the Sumerians were merely survivors. The remnants, they were really
Coach,
just
you know
remnants of that
that
previous society.
is quite skeptical to me.
What'd you say?
That Younger Dryas theory is quite debatable. I've told you
It's
this
not a
before.
theory. The
There
Younger
are at least
Dryas is
50
not a
main
theory at
theories,
all.
but it's theory.
The Younger Dryas is
It
not
is
a
because
theory.
it's one of 58 theories.
Let me tell you why you keep going in and out. So I'm gonna have to drop you here in a second because your microphone is horrible. So I'm gonna drop yours because I can barely understand you most of the time. But oh shit, what did I just do? Oh, there we go. So to say that so I hope that he's back so he can hear because I couldn't. Your microphone was terrible. So nothing. I didn't drop you because of anything you said or did not say. It's simply because the audio was horrible. The Younger Dryas is not a theory; it is a fact that during the last ice age, 400 feet of land was exposed from the current modern shore. And because of that, we have discovered civilizations that existed prior to the Younger Dryas all over the world that are under the water. Underwater. So it is not a theory of the Younger Dryas. This is why off of Egypt, there's underwater cities. Off of Italy, there are underwater cities. Off of Japan and other islands, there are underwater cities. We found underwater cities everywhere. And for a shameless plug, I will talk a lot more about that Saturday in the webinar that you guys can sign up for by going, and the link is in the description of this video, where I will talk even more details about all these underwater cities and all these these societies that already had plumbing, that already have natural water springs, and they use plumbing systems in order to move water for their people. They were already doing this before the Egyptians, before the Romans. But the Younger Dryas is not a theory. It has been proven. And not to mention Taran Tepe, well, Karan Tepe, I keep saying Taran Tepe, but it's Karan Tepe and Gobekli Tepe, which has been around even longer than the Egyptians. And they built monolithic societies there with the T-pillars, and they had dwellings and all sorts of things. And don't even get me started about down in Southern Africa with Adam's calendar. Thanks, Trifold, for donating a membership. But we had Adam's calendar. All the evidence leads to the Younger Dryas flood being real, and not to mention core samplings and all those sorts of things as well. The Younger Dryas is a real deal. The Hebrew people had absolutely nothing to do with Egyptian history until they created themselves in around the 1300 BCE area, 1300 BCE to 1200 BCE timeframe. I don't know if that was meant for me, but none of those people ever existed. What time frame did the Yoruba people have plumbing? I'm really asking because I want to know. Said thanks for gifting the membership. Whoever did that, you can thank Trifold, the gentleman who was just up here. Muntu is the one who gifted it. So that's who picked it up. It's younger Dryas. Let me see. I think Matt Young Raf just gifted a membership as well. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. What would you say was the golden age of Africa? I wouldn't like to put Africa as one, as if one thing was happening in Africa all at the same time. I mean, you had the time frame of the Ashanti Empire, you had the Zulu Empire, you had the Mali Empire. Um, there's been multiple empires that have reigned during the time frame of Africa, and a lot of the African history is that's beyond the that you wouldn't look. Most of the African history in sub-Saharan Africa is verbal, and it depends on what you would call a golden age. Most people call a golden age when technology is advanced and this sort of thing. Peace would be a golden age for me. So, like, if you was comparing to Egypt's golden age, that was a time frame they were conquering all these other lands and conquering all these other people, and uh, having trade routes and all these kinds of things that went all across. I just really don't like that idea of a golden age, because when has the world been? When any time a society was living in peace with its neighbors, that would be a golden age, and the people were taken care of, and the leadership wasn't taking advantage of them. That's a golden age. So, like, I wouldn't call the Zulu Empire a golden age, because they were killing and warring all over the place. Yeah, and I don't remember the Yoruba people having plumbing either, but having, managing their water and their sanitation, sure. Dude, Dryas is Dryas. I don't think there's an E in there. And it's not a theory. There was an ice age. Got too much proof of it. And see, we got Punt and the Kushite Empire during those time frames. But most of the time, we call golden ages when people are ruling over other people. So back to the subject matter. The the most stunning thing about the fact that the Israelite people cannot have ever been my ancestors is the fact that there has never been. Somebody mentioned, like, the Ashanti Empire. Melvin talked about the Ashanti Empire. The Ashanti Empire were not Israelites. The Zulus were not Israelite. The Songhai, not Israelites. You know, the Dahomey, the Benin people of that's Benin now. The Wayudas, not Israelites. These are the people that made up those who came to the Americas. These people were not Israelites. But the biggest thing is, because one, these people were in their countries, in their lands, long before an Israelite was ever declared. Before someone declared themselves an Israelite. During the time frame of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, There were already people in the Americas. So how in the hell are the people in the Americas Israelites? There were already people in sub-Saharan Africa. How in the hell are they Israelites? There was already people in Panama. I didn't even know this fool tried to say the Samoans. The Samoans and Hawaiians were already living, had their own gods. Matter of fact, we just saw Moana 2 not too long ago. They already had the heart of Tafiti. Back then, they never heard of an Israelite. The people of Hawaii and Samoa never even heard of an Israelite or until the Christians came. I want you to think about that. They want to claim that these people are from them. They never heard of none of them until a Christian came. What is the definition that you would say is Israelite? A group of nomadic people who separated themselves from the Canaanites somewhere in around 1300 to 1200 BCE, who then were defeated by the Egyptians, and during the Bronze Age collapse established themselves as a city-state and then into a nation, and then have been conquered ever since the 700s BCE. So they are relatively lost to history. And that's the main thing about it. Because the religion didn't become lost to history, people now try to claim it. But if the religion had become lost to history, no one would claim it. Or virtually no one would claim it. When this video is over in the next few days, there's going to be a gentleman who's going to post on YouTube, what would Odin the Allfather think? He is one of the very few people in the world who still worships or believes in Odin. At least I think he does. Sometimes I think he's just playing around. But nobody worships that religion anymore. It's now thought of in the same mindset of Marvel and Santa Claus. For instance, the Sumerian religion is dead. So there's no one worshiping. So let me go back. Up until about the 1800s, no one knew about the Sumerian religion. It had been lost to history. So no one prior to the 1800s were claiming to have Sumerian, Akkadian bloodlines and all these sorts of things. Once it was rediscovered in and around the 1800s, and then once it was beginning to be translated in the 1900s, all of a sudden now you got some people who are believing in Enlil and Enki and, Anu and all of that. But as long as the religion was dead, nobody claimed to be Sumerian. So in time, when Christianity and Judaism die, nobody's going to claim it. The religion will be dead, and so then, therefore, the people will be dead. They will be dead. The same way that the Axiomite religion is a dead religion, so they moved on to now calling themselves Christians and Jews and Muslims. You go to Egypt, it's Christians and Muslims and a little bit of Jewish, but mostly just Christians and Muslims. And it's all because of this. People wrote themselves into history and claimed to be special above everyone else. That's the whole reason. If you don't take nothing away from this tonight, take that people have argued and wrote themselves into a history in order to make themselves feel special. Now, if you adopt a religion, you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Most of the people who are, most of the people in the world who practice, who practice Judaism, at somewhere along their family lines, they adopted this religion. Especially how many women who marry a Jewish man and then the woman becomes Jewish. And yeah, as time goes on, there'll be a whole new religion 2,000 years from now. You're going to be apostate because 2,008 years from now, somebody's going to believe that the spaghetti monster on Saturn, the flying spaghetti monster on Saturn, actually exists. Let's see. But somewhere there is a special people, and that's what the Jews in Israel want to claim. And all I'm trying to say to you is that the real Jews of Africa, you're making yourself clear, but that doesn't make you correct. There are no real Jews. Their bloodlines are gone. They're mixed into Arabs and North Africans and Europeans and Asia Minor and all these other Mediterranean places. There is no real bloodline of Jewish people from those tribes. Those tribes were so small that it's kind of like how all these people can trace themselves to Genghis Khan. It's so minute. He said you're a full thoroughbred. All right now. I am a full-blooded from my mom and my daddy. I don't think it'll take that long. New religion has begun. Right now it's AI. Okay, can you settle a small debate? Is incest just a European evil or one that is found all throughout all races? It's one that's found throughout all races. Throughout all races. There are instances of incest with everybody. For some reason, and these are some of the things that I always do find interesting. And this is what the people who like the Anunnaki story like to jump on. The oldest stories of incest that we have come from the Sumerian stories with the Anunnaki, as well as the Egyptian stories with Asar and Aset being brother and sister. Well, Asar, Aset, and Seth are all brothers and sisters. And they fought over the love of their sister. Asar wins, and so they have Hebrew. For some strange reason, everybody in around the world, ancient stories, they got some incest going on. And that thing carried out itself well into like what we would denote as the 16th century, 15th century, 17th, 18th century. Like incest really just started getting pushed to the wayside in the early 1900s. You said I'm Haitian and my wife is Polish. Does that make the bloodline go away. No, I just think it doesn't make it go away. But then, depending upon who your children marry, oh man, I wish I had this thing. But depending upon who your children marry and who they marry and who they marry and their bloodlines, your Haitian bloodline can get incredibly diminished. Now, are you a light-skinned Haitian or you're a dark-skinned Haitian? Because even that matters. Because if you're a light-skinned Haitian, then you got some mixture of some Castilian Spain, and you got some the indigenous people and a little African, they're all mixed up in there. So it depends. It depends on your bloodline. Let me see if I can find this thing. Because I love this description. Yep, hold on. Give me 1 second, peoples. I saw this and I thought this was a perfect example of how this shit go. Actually, this one is, hold on, this one is actually better. It's more colorful. All right, I'm coming back to where I can see y'all. All right, I want you to look at this. This is how genetics work. So when you talk about, I know I downloaded the damn thing. Where'd it go? Where the hell did it go? Where did it save to? Okay, saved to my download file. So why am I not seeing it? Well, this sucks. Ah. PC download. Okay, why is it showing it there for those guys? All right, let's see if it worked this time. All right, we'll use this one. This one worked. All right, I'm sure you guys have seen this. Some of you may have seen this before. This is how genetics work. So when let's say you that red Haitian, and your wife is that yellow gummy bear, she's Polish, and y'all have some children. Well, y'all child come out a little orange, little light orange, and the other one come out a little half, half of you and a little half of her. But then that little half one, that half of you, half of her, winds up getting with somebody who came from two greens. They have some children. They have a child. That child comes out, got a little bit of the orange, got a whole bunch of green in the middle, a little yellow. But then they get with another orange one. But that orange one is going to get and have a mixture of children that got all kind of flavors all wrapped up in there. See? So even if somebody was starting out as one of these tribes, once they got conquered and they started being mixing up with, the Assyrians and mixing with the Babylonians and mixing with the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans and then with the Arabs and actually the Arab, it would be like one of those down there that's already been pre-mixed with a bunch of other stuff anyway, and start mixing up with all these different groups of people. By the time you get to anybody today, you just we all mutts. It's just a bunch of mixing going on. Now, unless your family tree, and there are places where it wasn't as much, but unless you were isolated, like look how long China was isolated. Look how North Korea right now is isolated, right? Some of these countries just isolated and isolated. They can maintain the green on green and have a green, and then they get into another family is green on green and they have a green, and those two greens get together and they have a green, and they can keep doing that for a while. Matter of fact, places like Vietnam was like that. Then all them American soldiers start going over there and mixing in some Caucasian and mixing in that black. And now you got a whole bunch of mixture going on with kids down there, in Vietnam. And that's just since the Vietnam War. We're just talking about from the Vietnam War era. You got a lot of mixing. So what in the hell you think happened in places like the Caribbean, where you got the Tiano people, which that wasn't their name. That actually that means friend, and they was asking the question, are you friend or not? And they start getting these Castilians, these Spanish people coming in, and Portuguese coming in, and then they start bringing Africans in, and they start mixing it all up and get a little gumbo going on. And now those people running around, they claim their nation before they claim any type of race. You can have a dark-skinned Puerto Rican, a brown-skinned Puerto Rican, and a light-skinned Puerto Rican. Before they claim anything, they're going to claim they Puerto Rican. Trust me, as a Marine, I saw that all the time. The Marine Corps gets Puerto Ricans left and right. It's the easiest place to recruit. Easiest place in America to recruit for the Marine Corps is Puerto Rico. But them jokers are Puerto Ricans before they anything. Now, you are right. We know we differentiate because of artificial borders. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We all just people. Only a person, and here's the thing, you'll know if you're functioning on a higher vibration of this when, yes, you can have a discussion about it and understand it, but in your day-to-day actions, when you truly just see people, and that's it, just people. When you can have an adult conversation, not a childlike conversation. Oh, hold on. I did not know this, but simply, Simplify, brother. Oh, you're a retired captain. Artillery. Oh my. Oh. You stay out there in them woods there, brother. Y'all do too much field duty. Mm-mm. No, sir. No, sir. I worked in air conditioning. But you know how the Marine Corps is. You be in air conditioning all I want to. Got to Liberia? Shit, I wasn't in no air conditioning. Went to Saudi, no air conditioning. Yeah, it was out there in the dirt with a gun in you, with an M16 in your hand. Exactly. And thank you for your service, Louis. Now, I never met any Haitian Marines. You would be the first Haitian Marine I've ever encountered. But there's no Israelites. So when the Hebrew Israelites make these claims, I've always asked the few times I've gotten into discussions with Hebrew Israelites, I always ask them the question: prove that your direct family line is an Israelite. Well, Deuteronomy 28 said we're gonna sail away over here on ships, and of course my ancestors came from the slave ships, and da 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 da. Prove your ancestors came on a slave ship. Like, can you find that slave ship? Your ancestor might have come later. Your ancestors could have come after slavery. Because there's a couple of my ancestors who came to America after slavery because they thought that the colonization that they were dealing with in Africa was worse than what they were dealing with, than what black people was dealing with in the Americas. Okay. Oh, you West Coast and Pacific. I was in Germany and North Carolina and Tampa. But until a person can actually demonstrate their heredity, you only know as far back as you can look. Like when I first started before I started checking my family history, then the only thing I would have been able to say is that on my dad's side of the family, they was in Georgia, and then before that they were in Virginia, and before that there was some that was in Ohio. My mom's side of the family, they were in Georgia, then they was in Alabama, and they were in Ohio. Prior to that, before I started researching, I didn't know where the hell anybody else would have came from. It wasn't until I started doing some further digging that I started finding that I had family members that had family lines that went through North Carolina on my father's mother's side that went up through North Carolina. And then those family members from North Carolina are the ones that thought that coming to the Americas right after the Civil War, because and I can understand their mindset, because right after the Civil War, it looked like black people were going to have a fair shake in America, and so they came from. I found out that line on my father's mother's side came directly from Nigeria to America after the Civil War, because they thought it was going to be better at the beginning of Reconstruction, and black people were having political office and things of that nature, so they jumped on the first boat and then got here and shit got flipped upside down on. What part of Ohio? Because I never Ohio, so what part of Ohio? Call me. And my family, we know our history, we know where we come from. What the fuck you talking about? But Dayton, Ohio, for more specifics, on my mother's father's side of the family. Before Alabama, it was Dayton, Ohio. I don't even know why I'm responding to this joke. You can't make a sentence. So off topic, do you think that some of the decline in religion we are seeing now could be due to laziness not wanting to get up on Sunday or during the week. I wouldn't put it on laziness, but I would say this. From what I've seen from a lot of the millennials and Gen Zers, is that COVID caused them to start watching church online. And because they was watching church online, they start paying attention to more information online. And then that has helped them leave the religion because they're doing more research. I told you Dayton, Ohio is where my grandfather's family come from. And before that, in Ohio, they came across on a boat from England. Well, on my father's side, that were in Ohio, came from a boat that came from England. And prior to England, they came from Gaeta. And prior from Gaeta, they came from the west coast of Africa. You know, I thought that I missed James, but we ain't seen James for over a month or so. But to try to intelligize the nonsense that he writes, I don't miss James. Because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But this is the kind of nonsensical statements that people make. I stay in Ohio, so I know about Ohio, so I know about the Ohio histories. What in the three levels of hell does that have to do with my family being from Ohio? Matter of fact, going to Ohio was one of the highlights of my childhood, going to the family reunion up there in Dayton, Ohio. That was one of the highlights of my childhood. And I am much older than you, so you wouldn't even been thought about when I was going up to Ohio. And I hope that you weren't in Ohio or from Ohio or Dayton, Ohio, because that would possibly make you kin to me. Because the whole goddamn town was shut down when we had this family reunion, because well, the black businesses would, because most of the motherfuckers was at the family reunion. But actually, that was one of the ways I was able to do some of the research, was to figure out a couple of the names of the family in Ohio, and then that would allow me to find out a lot more about the people. How old are you, James? And are you from Dayton, Ohio? I ain't asked you from anywhere else. Dayton, Ohio. No, I don't have any family members from West Virginia. I got some from, where were they? I think it was the Roanoke area of Virginia, somewhere near Roanoke, or was it Hampton area? Or no, it's closer to Roanoke. Some of the small ass town. Okay, good. Y'all tripping. But he's saying he's 48, which would put you in the age range. But when I was coming up there, you would have been a little toddler running around. But we didn't have family members coming from Columbus, Ohio. It was all in Dayton. I don't have any family members in Columbus during that time frame. Some have moved to Columbus since, but no. Yes, and some of y'all are petty. I saw that shit that y'all posted. Y'all got Angelina down there laughing. But I would tell all you guys, you should research your family history. It's very interesting to track your family, and you start seeing some of the documentation. You start seeing like the census reports and the Freedmen Bureau stuff is very interesting, because you will see where you have family members who are being cheated out of land and cheated out of opportunities. I got one relative, he was cheated out of opportunities on my dad's side in Virginia. And so he thought that he would go down to Savannah and it would be better. And then he got cheated in Savannah. And then he went up to Augusta, Georgia, thought it'd be better, got cheated in Augusta. And then finally just said to hell with it and went to Carrollton, Georgia. And I mean, not Carrollton, but the Lawrenceville, which is a suburb outside of Atlanta, and just said to hell with it, I'm just going to start building a family here in Lawrenceville, which is where he met his wife that leads to my family from North Carolina from North Carolina that came to America after the Civil War. So researching your family history is a very interesting thing to do. When you start finding these things out. Yeah, and you find out some of that kind of stuff too. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. On my dad's side of the family, about he's my third. See, he's my dad, and it's him. So that my dad, and that will make him a grandfather, a great grandfather, a second great grandfather. So my third great grandfather on my dad's side was a white dude. I think this is like my third or fourth grandfather. No, it's my fourth or fifth grandfather on my dad's side was a white dude. So you're gonna find out some stuff that you may not be all like, woohoo. And it was hard, because once I saw that the grandfather out under him on the census data, he was the 1850 census, he was mulatto. And I was like, oh shit. Because I had saw the white dude and I was like, nah, that's a white dude. He can't be that white dude in the 1840 census. I was like, that white dude is not part of my family. Nah, I'm going the wrong direction. And then when I saw the mulatto, I was like, oh, fuck. And I saw all the attachments, and I saw the white dude name, and I was like, nah, there gotta be a different dude. But nope. Oh, Jack Reed. I think it was Jack. Yeah, Jack Reed. Was Jack the mulatto, or Jack or John? I think John Reed was the white dude and Jack Reed was the mulatto. So you look back, ain't no telling what you're gonna find. I guess in the 1840s, he saw that chocolate and he just couldn't resist that chocolate. And so they had a baby. A little mulatto baby named Jack. I mean, they had a bunch of babies, but old Jack. So we see that people was willing to risk interracial long before the Civil War ended. Or your third great grandfather was white. Yeah. I would bet if your family's generations have been here for long enough into the 1800s, then you're going to find some, it's a possibility you're going to find some white folks in there. What year did the Civil War end? What was that, 1864? Yeah, 1864 is when it ended. Oh, 1865. 1865. Two sides of my family came through Ellis Island, one from Canada, traced back to France. Now, if your family came through Ellis Island, you can, depending upon where they were from, being from Canada or France, you should be able to search your French and British family kind of easily. Now, if they had came from Italy, that shit is tough because they often changed Italian people's names when they came through Ellis Island. No, I know that the overwhelming majority of my family came from Africa. For the ones that I could find that didn't just abruptly stop somewhere after, most of them, most of the people in different lines stopped in around the 1860 census or the 1880 census. There are a few, or only a few, that went back further than that. But no, I've found enough enough African. Very little native indigenous people. So you have Irish and Chinese in your bloodline going from my mother's side. But you got a little, what, you a West Coast black man? I always find it interesting. I find a lot of the people who grew up on the West Coast seem to have a little South Pacific or Pacific Islanders or Chinese or some Asian in their family. Or New Yorkers. You can have some Asian there for some reason. You know, everybody always want to go to New York. I know a fair amount. I've forgotten more than I still know, but a fair amount, depending on what the questions are about. But definitely, you got multiple sources that you can get these documents that makes it easier. Oh, you're born in Brooklyn. All right. But yeah, that's why I added New York to that list, because a lot of the Asians they go to New York and they go to California because that's all they know. Just like I never understood why these Caribbean people go flying up to New York, but then I came to the realization that that's all they knew. That's what they hear about. New York, New York, New York. You think that they would hear about Miami more so, but nope, New York. Now they all run to my city, Atlanta, my old city. All right. Change the subject. Change the subject. What other questions? What else are we talking about for the next 15 minutes? Got about 15 minutes before we wind it down. how many of you learned something different, something new about these 12 tribes of Israel today? For my own knowledge, how many of you guys learned something new? I want to know if I was effective. No, I don't watch those kinds of movies, so I haven't seen Sinners and most likely will not go see Sinners. The next movie that my wife and I are going to see is The Accountant 2, the sequel to the movie Accountant. You can send, you want to send some money right there. There you go. Sean did. Cool, cool, cool. So this cigar is one of the darker rolls of La Angelina, a roll by my wife. And if you'd like to get yourself a 5-pack, which they will be assorted from the lighter ones to the darker ones, then just contact me at masteringyou10@gmail.com. If you just want one cigar, it's $8 plus shipping. If you want 5, it's they $7.50 a piece plus shipping. All right. People learn stuff new. Deuteronomy, great breakdown. Something new. Dwayne, something new. Good, good, good. Yes. Sweet hand roll with love, but they're not sweet cigars though, but they got the sweetness of her love. What do you mean by those? I don't like the slasher movies, the gory movies, the jump scare movies, the horror movies. I don't particularly care for those. So I think the Freddy Krueger movies were and the Jason movies were like the last of those movies I ever watched. Yeah, 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 you was wrong, Raph. Cause she loved me. Go and hit us up, Mastering You, the number 10 at gmail.com. Get yourself some cigars. The La Angelina. Cool. That is always my goal, whether we agree or disagree, to learn something new. There you go. I was wondering when you was gonna show up. Hold on, Papa Lance, can you talk? Can you talk? Papa Lance ordered some cigars from us. Can you talk? Like, I might do a review about this movie simply because I might talk about it simply because all these Christians are like, don't go to this movie, don't go. I'm like, okay, y'all knew what the movie was about. Why y'all go see it? Oh, he said he can't talk. Oh, I was just trying to coax out of you that, endorsement is one thing for me to say that her cigars are great, but it's a whole nother thing if somebody else says that they're great. Or, if they weren't, they weren't. Every cigar is not for everybody. But just looking for the cheap ringing endorsement. You smoked 3 so far. So I know I sent you 3 of the lighter ones and 2 of the more full body ones. So it's 3 of the light to medium and 2 of the full body. What you think? Be honest. Yep. The Maccabees talk about how they were shipped to Alexandria. And the War of the Jews and Josephus as well talks about that. So it's not a website. So all you do is just send me a email, and I'll put the email address in here. In the link, I'll put the email address in. We haven't gotten that far as building a website yet. So just the email that I just posted, you can contact us there. Yeah, see, that's why I'd rather just do a video. So it's a mixture of life and dust till dawn. Is somewhat on line with what the movie Sinners is. Life was a funny. You notice that? Okay, so you like the dark medium body ones best? And the reason why I sent you a mixture or send a mixture on that first one is because I want to, you see which ones you like more, and then you can be more specific in your next order. Say, I just want all the dark mediums. So from now on, if you order them, you'll get the dark medium. Just remind me. There's the endorsement. There's that endorsement. You see that, Angelina? I know you're still on here. You see that? Because we picked out some good leads. Are you talking about the barber poles? I can't stand barber poles. I want my cigar to be, a better, not, I don't like the blend being that mixed up. If I want a full body, I want a full body. If I want a medium, I want a medium. But barber poles, I don't really care for. I'm not going to read all that, but we talked about this earlier. You see, when people want to hold on to this religion, but they don't like how the religion has played itself out in history, they try to make it into something that it's not. They didn't look at the 12 tribes as some metaphorical thing. Those 12 tribes were 12 tribes, 12 groups of people. They never looked at it in this metaphysical way that people try to look at it today. Oh, yes, sir. Post it all over your page. Yes, we love advertising. Yes, you can post it all. And this is her giving you the thumbs up. Yes, post it like a champ. But yeah, you want to this whole metaphysical, oh, it meant this, it meant that. That's people just trying to hold on to it. The truth of the matter is, this religion should be just thrown away. Really. Whatever good you can get out of that book, you can find somewhere that doesn't have all the genocide and all the rape and all the child killing and all the racism and the slavery and all that stuff. So there is no reason to actually, I used to be the type that would say that, oh, if we look deeper in the Bible, we can pull these messages and learn from it. No, it's not even worth that. You see, you can't fully deconstruct from this book until you let the book go, period. If you just take a little side turn and all of a sudden you want to try to make it into something that it's not, yeah, you're still just attached to it. You haven't emotionally let it go. So Just let the damn thing go. Every good thing that you might learn from the Bible, you can get from the Tao without any genocide, without any murdering, without downgrading women, without any of those things you can get from the Tao. You can get from the Hermetics. So why do I even need the Bible if I can get whatever it may have that is decent from things that don't have all the crap that's attached to it? That's it. We prayed for something when those bullets were flying. Fear, fear is the precursor to courage. You know what's funny is that even though I was Christian at that time frame, I didn't pray. When we was in Liberia or Bosnia or Saudi Arabia, I didn't pray at all. I just had this determined mindset that I was going to survive. That's it. And I found that interesting later when I had time to think about it, is that I never prayed when I was in the military, when I was in situations like that. Never, not one time. Yep, you can wipe it. It's gonna be a little rough. You might get some cuts, some rough paper, man. That's some rough paper. Thank you for saying it's a great show, but no to the Tanakh. Shit, the Tanakh is worse than the damn New Testament. I cannot say that I was godless during those situations. It's just God never came to my mind during those situations. During those situations, my mind was focused on the fact that I'm not dying. I'll be damned if I die. That was my mindset. What papers? So if I was going to look up some papers, I would go to academia.edu or I would go to Google Scholar and I would just put in the subject matter that you want to research. Then you're going to get a bunch of papers. Now, the quality of your statement is going to determine what you get. So you could put in, if you add words like peer review of, if you read somebody's stuff, then go back in and research and put that person's name in their paper and put peer review. And then you'll get the peer review documents as well. I don't necessarily, I honestly, and it's probably something I should pay more attention to. I don't necessarily pay attention to who wrote it because I know I'm going to read the peer review of it. Oh, really? But when it comes out and it's free, I'll probably watch it then. I don't know. It's a black man who made that. I might go check it out. I know my wife don't want to. Oh, you was in Bosnia? Oh, shit. Okay. I don't know if you remember when it first kicked off and that C-130, was it a C-130 or a C-5? I think it was a C-130. I'm trying to remember something from 30 years ago. I believe it was a C-130 that went down. My group, we went in there to go find them jokers. They wound up making their way to the beach about 50 miles south of us. But we went in there to find them and found the wreckage, and then they weren't there. And then we got a radio call that they were down beach. And so we made it back, but we went through a couple of ambushes on our way in and out. So I went through some towns, but I didn't go through none of the cities. I believe you're 100, but 100% that was my situation as a captain out in the field in Afghanistan. I had to think about the men that I was sending forward, and to be honest, that's when I found religion. I refound religion. I can understand that. Combat does something to the mind. I understand that. We could probably have a whole nother conversation on that. I understand what you're saying about the NT is worse because it got hell and it got the lake of fire turned to torture. But all that genociding and baby killing and women treatment, I think that's worse because that's real life shit. The lake of fire is fantasy. It is. It is a Kabbalah chart. Yep. I studied it. I find Kabbalah interesting, but not like, ooh, yeah, I believe that. And I say, I'm finance. I was in Boston for 2 weeks and on my way to Cesar Hungary. You know, people can say what they want to say. I went to the Marine Corps, took a job that I thought I would avoid combat. I don't know how I know how because I had an asshole staff sergeant. I kept ending up in combat. The last one though wasn't supposed to have been. It was supposed to just have been a humanitarian review to see what was going to be needed, but it happened to turn into a combat situation because some people attacked the refugee camp that we went to. So our intent was just to go to a refugee camp and just evaluate what was needed. But that camp got attacked. So there's that. And yeah, when you're responsible for other people, I can see how a person can refine religion. But my cigar is gone. My coffee is gone, which this was some strong ass coffee. So hopefully I won't be up to 2 o'clock in the morning. But if I do, I know what I'm gonna do. I got some other work that I can get done. But I appreciate you guys. That's the end of the show. Don't care what questions you put up now. I'm not going to answer them. But I appreciate y'all. I thank y'all for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you wanted some cigars, I put the email in the comment sections of masteringyou10@gmail.com. Contact us there. Appreciate that. All my subscribers and members and Trifold and somebody else. I forgot who. I'm sorry, don't remember the name. Donated memberships, and I thank you guys for donating memberships today, and I thank all my members on YouTube and my subscription holders on Facebook. I appreciate you guys. In the description of this video, you can see the link to the webinar that's going down on Saturdays concerning Noah's flood. I hope that you guys will click on that and go join that webinar. Now, if you are a troll, I will kick you out of it if you're not staying on subject. So I look forward to you guys being there, even those who disagree, just as long as you're disagreeing about the subject matter. And yeah, did you get the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor? Of course. I am a Marine. And I said, you stupid. I protected myself with my M16 with a 203 grenade launcher on it. That's how I protected myself, and some good command and coordination. So y'all have a great night, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and I'm out.